My name is Sabrina, and I'm 45 years old. I live with my husband, who is the same age, and my mother-in-law. It's already this late. I need to start preparing dinner, or my mother-in-law will start complaining again. The clock already points to 5 p.m. I stopped what I was doing and headed straight to the kitchen on the first floor. It seems my mother-in-law hasn't returned yet. I felt a bit relieved and started preparing the meal. Working from home allows me to easily switch to household chores. I work as a designer from home. I'm not an employee, but a freelancer. So this house is effectively my office. The living room and common areas are on the first floor. The second floor houses my workspace and our bedroom. I'm back! As soon as she returned, my mother-in-law glared at me and sighed. Oh, you're starting dinner this late. I've just come home after a long day and it's almost time for your husband to get home. Complaining like this is a habit for my mother-in-law. Really, you're such a useless daughter-in-law. Unlike my mother-in-law, who lives comfortably on her pension, I'm working and would appreciate a bit of consideration. I smiled vaguely at my mother-in-law's words. This sort of thing happens all the time. There's no point in arguing about it. Mom, where were you today? I engaged my mother-in-law in small talk. There was a neighborhood association meeting. Next week, I'm participating in a senior citizens event. Talking with old people is so tiring. It's always such depressing talk. You're old too, though. I thought this, but I didn't say it. Just smiled at her. Is that so? That sounds tough. If you think so, then make me some tea. I want something sweet. Go buy some donuts from the shop nearby. Even though it's almost time for dinner, she acts like a spoiled child. My mother-in-law is selfish and self-centered. She always enjoys bossing me around and making me do what she wants. I quietly ignored her and started preparing dinner. If she started complaining again, I would just serve her the expired Jell-O from the fridge. That's how I've been getting by with my mother-in-law. Sabrina, is this all we're having for dinner today? Even though you say this is all, there's grilled fish with radish, soup, yesterday's leftover sautéed carrots, and pickles lined up on the table. Isn't that enough? I was really busy today, so I had to throw this together quickly. It's the end of the world when a housewife starts cutting corners. She glares at me again while holding her fork. Come on, it's fine. It looks delicious. My husband, exaggeratedly, expressed his delight and began to eat. An awkward atmosphere settled over the dining table. I just want to enjoy a meal in peace. I really can't stand my mother-in-law. When I was young, it was embarrassing to be criticized for things like this. You really have no shame or pride, do you? When I got married, women dedicated their lives to their husbands and never defied them. Getting up earlier than anyone and going to bed later than everyone. And we never forgot our feminine graces. I mastered everything perfectly. Sewing, high tea, gardening. What era is she even talking about? My mother-in-law's stories are always like this. She always says she had a hard time when she was young and had to do whatever she was told. It's true that my mother-in-law is skilled in sewing, and her training in high tea and gardening makes her manners as graceful as those in 1950s era America. Our neighbors often say things like, "Your mother-in-law and you always look so lovely together." But who could imagine that she bullies me at home? I've been living with this mother-in-law for 20 years now. We initially lived apart when we first got married, but she moved into our house after her husband divorced her and left her all alone. Apparently, her husband was very patriarchal. I remember when we went to greet them after getting engaged, her husband was sitting arrogantly while she was extremely subservient. In front of me, he would say to her, "Hey, the tea is lukewarm. Do it properly. How long are you going to dawdle around?" He would always dominate her. My husband says that verbal abuse towards his mother was a regular thing, and sometimes his father even hit her. As a boy, my husband was doted on, but the way his father treated his mother was extremely harsh. It's shocking to learn that his father was having affairs behind the scenes. One day, his father said to his mother, "Leave the house immediately. I'm getting remarried." And he easily kicked her out. True to his word, his mother was divorced without a penny to her name. This happened when she was just shy of 50 years old. Having been a housewife for nearly 30 years, she had no way to support herself on her own. My husband and I discussed it and decided to take her in. At that time, I felt sorry for her being mistreated and abused by my father-in-law, so we chose to live together. That was 20 years ago. Now, I regret whether it was the right decision, because my mother-in-law has become just as overbearing as my father-in-law.
"Sabrina, make me some tea after dinner,"
she demands. "I'm busy right now. Could you make it yourself?" I call out to my husband, who's reading the newspaper at the table. "Got it." My husband says this, gets up, and starts boiling water in the kitchen. Seeing this, my mother-in-law rushes over.
"How dare you make your husband prepare the tea? What kind of upbringing did you have?"
Angered, my mother-in-law scolds me, and I respond. As you can see, I'm in the middle of washing dishes and can't stop.
"That's just an excuse. Why do you always talk back to me? Who do you think you are, relying on your husband financially? You only contribute $500 a month for rent. You really are useless."
Saying this, my mother-in-law snatched the teapot and began making tea herself. If she can do it herself, why does she ask me? Even if the rent thing is true, it has nothing to do with this. Thinking this, I bit my tongue and managed not to say anything. I really ended up with a horrible mother-in-law. I was beginning to feel quite exposed from living in the same hometown as my mother-in-law. Then one day, my mother-in-law came home from outside in an unusually cheerful mood. She was so happy, humming and skipping around the house. I couldn't help but wonder what had happened. "Mom, you seem really happy today. Is everything okay? Did something happen?"
"Oh, Sabrina, I just wanted to ask something. The living room on the first floor or the one upstairs?"
I wondered what she was getting at. The room upstairs is where I usually work. Well, yes, the upstairs room is bigger. Plus, if we remove the divider, it can be one large room.
"Oh, really? I didn't know that. It seems like there's no issue with space."
My mother-in-law pondered to herself. I had no idea what she was thinking. Mother-in-law, what's going on?" I asked with a sense of foreboding.
"I'm going to become a sewing teacher."
"A teacher?"
"A friend I met at the community center invited me to start a sewing class together. Can you believe it? Me at 70 becoming a teacher? Today was the last day of the sewing class we've been doing at the community center every week. It was the last day, and then, since I'm good at sewing, and Michelle is too, we decided to become teachers and recruit members."
My mother-in-law explained happily. "Is that so, mother-in-law? That's amazing." I pretended to be a little more surprised than I actually was. If my mother-in-law spends more time outside, it might make things a bit easier for me. Thinking that, I found myself feeling a bit happy too.
"It's embarrassing to become a teacher at this age, but I was persuaded to do it."
"That's great, isn't it? So how often will the classes be held at the community center?"
"Huh? Not at the community center."
Mother-in-law let out a frantic voice. "So are you planning to rent a venue then?"
"What are you talking about? We have this house, don't we?"
"Huh?" Now it was my turn to sound bewildered.
"The room upstairs is just right. It's messy with stuff scattered around, so make sure it's cleaned up by next week because guests will be coming."
Wait a minute. That room is where I work."
"Work? Can't you do it in the study room downstairs?"
"But that's not possible. I need to set up mannequins and take photos, so I need flooring, not carpet. Besides, that study room is too small and impractical for work. I explained to my mother-in-law why it had to be the second floor not once but twice. But my mother-in-law was stubborn.
No, it's already decided.
This is a problem. Where am I supposed to work?
You should use your head a little. Why don't you rent a place yourself?
My mother-in-law said proudly.
You're only putting in $500 a month, aren't you? Don't get too cocky, thinking you're something special.
My mother-in-law said this and boldly entered my second-floor workroom, starting to tidy up my work tools.
Honestly, you're such an incompetent daughter-in-law who can't even tidy up properly.
It was futile to say anything more to this mother-in-law. I resigned myself to the situation. I see. Then please feel free to do as you like. Since I won't be using this room, does that mean I can stop contributing the $500? I asked.
With my pension, I can manage just fine. How long are you going to think $500 is enough? It's because of clueless daughters-in-law like you that I'm annoyed. From now on, make sure you don't go against what your mother-in-law says, all right?
I smiled and said, Understood. And that was that. Without even looking at my mother-in-law's face, I left the room. I'll show her who's the boss. And then, a few months later, the day arrived for my mother-in-law to hold the sewing class. There were about 10 students, all middle-aged or older housewives like me. I even recognized some of the women from the neighborhood.
All right, everyone. Welcome. Sabrina, could you please serve tea to everyone?
My mother-in-law said to me in an unfamiliar tone. I brewed the tea and headed upstairs, offering it to the students. Now first, let's collect the classroom rental fee. As soon as I said that in front of everyone, it got noisy.
Rental fee? What are you talking about? Why would you charge something like that?
The students started whispering to each other, and my mother-in-law said, trying to cover it up.
Oh, Sabrina, you're quite the joker.
She said, trying to smooth things over. She was smiling, but her eyes clearly showed anger. But I didn't back down. No, I'm not joking. This is my workspace. Since you're forcibly using it for snacks, it's only fair to receive payment, isn't it? If we were to rent an office of this size, it would cost over $2,000 per month, wouldn't it? With 10 students, would it be acceptable to charge $100 each? I said with an overflowing smile. My mother-in-law's strained face was amusingly irresistible.
That's Sabrina. She's really dependable. Right. I'll cover the classroom usage fees. I can't have the students pay.
My mother-in-law said with a wry smile. Is that so? Then I'll also ask for the classroom usage fee, utilities, and the property tax for this house altogether, please.
Utility bills? Property tax?
Yes, I've been paying them until now, but it seems from now on you'll be handling them, Mom. Please take care of it. Then, a student who had been listening awkwardly to our conversation suddenly started preparing to leave. I'm sorry, I'll head home. I feel like I shouldn't be here. I also feel like I've intruded on your daughter-in-law's place. I'm sorry. Students start to leave in a group.
Oh, everyone, please, wait.
Despite my mother-in-law's attempt to stop them, the students left. In the end, the only one left was my mother-in-law's friend, Michelle.
What's going on?
Michelle confronted my mother-in-law with an angry expression.
It's that daughter-in-law, doing things on her own. Are you using this room without your daughter-in-law's permission? No, it's not like that.
Beside my flustered mother-in-law, I quietly sipped the tea I poured for myself.
I went to all the trouble of inviting various people and now it's all ruined. I left it to you because you said let's do it at your house. And that's enough. I was foolish to rely on you. Michelle.
Michelle left the house.
I can't believe it. After all the effort, becoming a teacher and hoping we could all enjoy sewing together.
My mother-in-law murmured in a dazed state. Ignoring her muttering, I left the house. Michelle, thank you. I'm sorry for dragging everyone into this charade. I was enjoying tea at a certain cafe. At my table were the students who had just left my house and Michelle. It's okay, but I never imagined that person would engage in bullying.
She always seemed gentle and timid.
The students were all discussing it. Today's events were all orchestrated. The name Michelle struck a chord with me. She was my friend's mother-in-law. Around the same age as my mother-in-law, but a straightforward woman unaffected by daughter-in-law bullying. My friend had a good relationship with Michelle, and in the past we used to get along well together too. I contacted Michelle and explained the situation. At first, she was surprised, but after listening to my story, she strangely seemed to understand.
Indeed, she mentioned before that she and you didn't get along. I was a little worried because you and I have always been close.
Michelle seemed concerned about me and my mother-in-law for a while, and then I planned this with Michelle. I wanted to give my mother-in-law, who had been acting recklessly, a taste of her own medicine. Of course, all the students were in on it, knowing the whole situation as well.
With this, perhaps that person will learn her lesson and behave better?
I hope so. That would be nice.
If anything happens, please consult with me again.
Michelle kindly smiled at me. By the way, what about the sewing class in the future?
As you said, we plan to rent a place somewhere.
I see. In that case, would you like me to introduce you to someone I know?
Really? Sabrina, you're dependable. That helps.
When I returned home that day, my mother-in-law seemed quite angry.
Sabrina, you've embarrassed me. I can't forgive you. Right now, bring everyone back and apologize on your knees. Really, what were you thinking?
As my mother-in-law screamed, I aimed my phone at her. I'm sorry. I'm in the middle of a call with this person. Saying that, I showed the screen displaying Michelle as the caller.
Wait, what? Why are you talking to Michelle?
Taking the phone from me, my mother-in-law panicked, saying, Michelle, this is wrong. Michelle. Then from the phone on speaker mode,
Mom, what are you talking about with Michelle?
I heard my husband's voice.
That voice?
My mother-in-law's eyes widened in surprise. I had changed my husband's phone number to Michelle in my contacts. I can't help but almost burst out laughing at her flustered reaction. What's wrong, Mom? I smile and proceed to prepare dinner. My mother-in-law looks at me with horror. It seems she never expected such a prank from the daughter-in-law she had previously looked down upon. After that, my mother-in-law became remarkably quiet, like a completely different person. She began to avoid talking to me as much as possible and wanted to have meals separately. Does she think I will poison her or something? Seeing my mother-in-law's behavior, my husband asks,
What's wrong with Mom lately? You've been acting weird ever since I got that strange call from your cell phone.
Who knows what happened?
Maybe Mom's getting old.
Maybe so, I say dismissively. There's no need for me to explain every detail. Since the sarcasm has considerably diminished, I can work comfortably every day. If peaceful days continue like this, that's fine with me. That's what I think.